Hi there everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Czarface record, Every Hero Needs a Villain. Every Hero Needs a Villain is a collaborative hip-hop project featuring producer 7L, MC Esoteric, and Wu-Tang legend Inspectah Deck. 7L and Esoteric have been making music together for years, so seeing these two guys team up on a record isn't too weird. But a few years ago, when the Czarface project was originally announced, and it was said that they would be coming together with Inspectah Deck on a full-length album, it turned some heads. And the debut full-length LP out of this project was okay, it wasn't amazing, but I feel like the opinion of most people when it comes to 7L and Esoteric and Inspectah Deck isn't really, that high to begin with. Not that they're terrible, but I feel like in most people's books, they're usually not really rated as like top tier rappers. Most definitely underrated rappers. So I kind of feel like this debut LP, it not blowing a lot of people away, wasn't necessarily expected, but it was kind of accepted. But it just seemed like there was so much more potential in this project than was actually capitalized on. Not just because of the talent level and the experience of the respective artists involved, but also because of the kind of cartoony, comic book themed vocal cuts and imagery and album art that was kind of paired with this thing. It's all a little MF Doom-ish, who is actually a featured guest on this new record over here. In the lyrics on this thing, in the previous record too, there's also talk of wrestling, lasers, the kind of cartoony cutthroat violence that is typical of a Wu-Tang affiliated project. And on the debut Czarface record, all of this was kind of set to a series of boom bap style instrumentals that were a little dated. Kind of sounded like somebody from the mid or early 2000s trying to impersonate boom bap style hip hop, rather than, like a true blue, genuine reinterpretation. However, I feel like that's what we're actually getting on this new project over here. 7L brings the grime, he brings the bass. There are some fantastic samples worked into these tracks as well, some great grooves, some great drum breaks, a lot of color, a lot of personality, a lot of eccentricity in the instrumentals on this record. Finally, I feel like the sound of Czarface matches the colorful comic book themed art that comes with this record, and that this album is supposed to be kind of setting the soundtrack to. This record is mean, it's tough as nails, but the sound of it, there's also an element of like playfulness to it. And there's actually a pretty awesome feature list on this thing too. I already mentioned MF Doom. We have GZA, Method Man, Large Professor, among others on here, including Mayhem Loren. And there are actually some risky spots in the track listing here, like the 8-minute Escape from CZARKHAM ASYLUM, which is actually really fantastic, justifies its very long length thanks to the multiple kind of beat change-ups that the song kind of moves through over the course of its length. If I could sum this record up in any way, it's kind of like this direct fusion of MF Doom and Wu-Tang isms together, complemented by these really great rap flows and raw-ass rhymes. And the flows and the deliveries are so energetic. There's so much, I guess, I would say, enthusiasm on this record, which is a great change of pace because there are a lot of moments on the last Czarface album where Esoteric and Inspectah Deck didn't really sound that amped to be making this album. And I'm not really sure what about it made it that way, but I would say it's like a night and day difference on this project over here because like the chemistry is through the roof. Especially on the track Lumberjack Match, which is one of the earlier songs in the track listing here. We get relentless flows and verses just throughout the song. And Deck and Esoteric transition into some really catchy flows on the very next track over here with this booming jump the fuck up bassy beat that complements Method Man's style very well when he pops onto the track. There are even moments on here like on the song The Great where we get some pretty funny hooks like I'm straight, y'all got it twisted, I'm great, y'all not as gifted. This album has a serious sense of humor sometimes too. And again, I have to emphasize good hooks on this thing, even though some of them may be kind of simple. I love the sort of eerie, subtle, toned down approach to the chorus on the song, red alert, ooh, ooh, red alert, red alert. A song whose instrumental also features one of the sickest grooves on the entire project. And as far as what this album is doing in terms of lyricism, I mean, this album meets the standard that you would typically expect from a guy who is cut from Inspectah Deck's cloth. And Inspectah Deck, while he does have some of the best verses on Wu-Tang's projects. He's a guy whose talents I don't think have always been showcased that well when it's come to solo efforts. But it's on this record over here that I feel like, you know, after years of just one underappreciated solo record after another, he comes through with just a really fire collaborative project. Him and 7L and Esoteric really lit this thing up. And the features list isn't only just impressive in name, but pretty much every single person here comes through with a great verse and a lot of enthusiasm. There's a lot of passion in the guest verses on this project. I mean, GZA, for one, his verse is killer, and he sounded just almost nearly asleep on the last Wu album. Even Doom doesn't slouch, and you know, some of his stuff has been bordering on lazy a little bit lately. But easily, toward the end of this album, R.A. the Rugged Man had one of my favorite and I think most hilarious verses on the entire project. I mean, just his flow, his over-the-top vulgarity just totally matched the character of this album. He was entertaining, and it was kind of like, you know, the big firework explosion to end this album off, in terms of features anyway. I think my only main complaint about this project is that there are a few tracks on here that are a little short of breath, could have slipped easily into the last record. You know, didn't really feel like Czarface had kind of improved on all fronts like they did on most of the songs here. It's just a handful of tracks that are kind of like paling in comparison to others, really. Not really anything that's kind of derailing the quality of the track listing here for the most part. The songs that aren't as great just kind of breeze by, and those moments are really kind of few and far between. As I said, there's a lot of passion in this project, a lot of grit, a lot of personality, and I think a lot of skill. And it's just an added bonus that it's very colorfully and fantastically produced. I'm feeling a decent 8 on this thing. Tran, have you given this project a listen? If you have, what'd you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. That's it, guys. Anthony Fantano, Czarface, forever.